Lesson 4.6, Dividing Complex Numbers. So we've talked about adding, subtracting, and multiplying complex numbers, and now we are going to divide complex numbers. If you see here, the directions tell us to write the quotient in standard form. We cannot leave it as it is because looking at the denominator, there is an I in the denominator, and we know from this lesson that I is the same thing as the square root of -1, which means we have a radical in the denominator. Therefore, we must simplify. In order to do this, we're going to treat it almost like we did when we were rationalizing denominators in 4.5. So we have 7 plus 5i divided by 1 minus 4i. We need to cancel out the I in the denominator, and in order to do that, we have to multiply by what is known as the complex conjugate. We talked about the complex conjugate in the last example. Complex conjugate of 1 minus 4i will be 1 plus 4i. So looking at just the denominator here, when I go ahead and FOIL the denominator, I will get 1 plus 4i minus 4i minus 16i squared, which is perfect because we notice in the denominator that the I part cancels, leaving us with 1 minus 16 times -1. Don't forget to substitute -1 in for I squared anytime you see it. In other words, my denominator simplifies to 1 plus 16, which is 17. Numerator, we follow the same steps. We simply FOIL, which is going to give us 7 plus 28i plus 5i plus 20i squared. When I combine like terms, that will give me 7 plus 33i, and again I have to sub in -1 for that I squared, which will give me minus 20. Continuing to simplify that numerator, I will have -13 plus 33i over 17. Now to write it in standard form, as we've seen before, we need the real part first, and then we need the imaginary part second. So to do that, I'm going to write it as -13/17 plus 33i over 17. That gives me a clear real part and a clear imaginary part in standard form. I'd like you to complete the guided practice on page 278, 11 through 14, and I'm going to read the answers for you here so you can check yourself as you go. Number 11, the answer is 1 plus 9i. Number 12, 16 plus 2i. Number 13, 5/2 minus 5/2 I. And 14, 11/13 plus 16/13 I.